I'm about to hop on, yeah. I'm interviewing Josh and Jean right now. I don't know where the monitor is for the baby. Do you?
Here, right here. Right here. Want a decaf for you?
I'm good. Hey there.
Let's see. There we go.
Oh, I hear you.
Okay, great. Perfect. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I've heard a lot about you, so it's nice to meet you.
You too.
Officially, not officially.
I feel like I should already know you by now, right?
Josh is turning down the heat because we're cooking ourselves out here.
No worries. So we're actually live right now in the group. Yep. Just so you know. But yeah, I'm going to tell the group. I know there's people logging on right now, guys. So just take a seat and get ready. Yeah.
Hello.
Hey. So we're just kind of like we just got you guys live in the Facebook group. So we're going to kind of wait for a few people to log on. So many people are really excited about today, by the way. And then I have to catch up with you guys at some point after, like, you know, we don't have hundreds of people watching us.
Yeah, well, that's too dark now. Trying to fix the lighting.
So yeah, take your time, guys. And
you go somewhere in between.
Okay.
Right there. Better sometimes.
It's a shadow.
All right.
So it looks so bright.
You don't look bright on my end.
Yeah,
oh,
you're
really?
just not used to it.
No, you look totally normal.
Totally.
Not normal, but totally normal.
Yeah.
All right, so really excited to have you guys on. I know there's people are popping on right now. I can kind of see people popping in here. So guys, welcome. If you are just popping on now, we're about to start Thyroid Health today, and it's going to be awesome. We're here with Josh and Jean Rubin of East West Healing. And if you're just popping on, grab a pen and paper. We have a lot of amazing information. I'm actually really excited to ask so many questions too. I might get a little overboard because I'm like Question McGee over here. But but so we're going to get started. So I'm going to introduce my good friends, Josh and Jeannie Rubin. Guys, they are thyroid experts, and today they are going to be here to explain to you what they do. They're going to explain their background, how they got into this. First off, what inspired them to get here, because really they have revolutionized nutrition for thyroid health. So what we are really excited to know today is how this passion started with them. And then we're going to go into lots of different questions about common conditions and what is the thyroid, what does the thyroid do, what is hypothyroidism versus hyperthyroidism, what foods can we do, can we consume that can help the condition, what foods should we stay away from, and supplementation, do we really need that, or is natural food the way to go, organic or not organic? So we've got all these different questions to ask. Okay,
and we tricked you all. This isn't 30 minutes. This is an 8-hour live.
This is going to be the rest of your life. No. So we'll kind of get into as much as we can, all right, in the next 45 minutes. But I am going to shut my boca here, and I'm going to throw it over to you guys. So thank you for coming on. So you can start. I don't know how you guys want to start off, but just give us a quick overview of who you guys are and your background and how you got started into this business.
We are lovers. We'll really simplify it, because this could be like a 20-minute explanation here. But we met in California. I'm from Boston originally. We met in California. And we met when I was kind of co-teaching for a health institute. She was a student, and after class I was like, hey, can I have your number, please?
Very close recollection, yes.
So to really kind of like streamline this whole thing, we started doing a lot of rehab, with my background, my education, and her education with the Czech Institute. We did a lot of rehab with people, and we were doing nutrition at the same time. So it's kind of this like holistic approach. This was like 15 years ago, right? And then over the course of doing that, we just went more towards nutrition, because we found that everyone that was coming to us had stacks and stacks of labs. They were taking tons of supplements. Everyone said the same thing, and they still do. I've tried this, that. I worked with this person. Nothing's worked. And we started to see that the one thing everyone was missing was nutrition. They were doing diets, but nutrition is different than dieting. They were taking supplements. They were doing labs. They were doing all these crazy modalities. Nothing was working. And at the time, it was interesting. It just kind of happened. We got introduced to many people's work, from Paul Chek to Hans Helier to Ray Peat, who kind of influenced us in the realm of like, if you give the body what it needs, nature will do the rest. So we started to really run with that and really look at the body from a physiological standpoint, a functional standpoint versus a dysfunctional standpoint. And that's how most people look at the body. And it pushed us into metabolism, the thyroid, how the cell works. That's the depth of what we're looking at. Of course, we just say in the surface, the thyroid.
It's the foundation.
Yeah.
It's looking more at the foundation. Our work has always been in the wholeness, and it has evolved over the years to become something, okay, well, if we can focus on how the cells that breathe every part of our body are functioning, then we can step out of the way. And it's not just, even strangling nutrition and focusing on nutrition,
right,
but it's really developing an awareness and understanding into your lifestyle that, so what's interrupting, right? What's interfering with my ability to be able to maintain a balanced level of health, right? Homeostasis, or even be able to get back and forth through the challenges of day-to-day life and recover back into balance, right? Which is something people aren't doing these days. But overall,
that's the evolution. In the beginning it was thyroid, and then it just grew into the relationships and the cells, and we got deeper into the nervous system and the connections and just how people are living, and saying, yes, we could just focus on nutrition, but now we have to look a bit deeper, because if we're just doing this diet, but our life is like living in the middle of a war zone, how much is that diet really going to work? And this is why a lot of people are struggling, is because I don't want to say it's all their fault, but people aren't asking them to change, or they're not willing to change. And the only way we can create change is to change. And nutrition is one piece to that healing puzzle when you're talking about anything.
Well, I think there's also been a culture that's been created that doesn't allow us to, or there's not an attention, a focus towards change, right? So we've been conditioned in that way of thinking, well, if I want to get healthy, then I've got to lose weight. If I want to get healthy, then I've got to eat certain foods. Versus if I want to get healthy, I want to make sure my bills are paid, my trash is out, my house is in order, my kids are healthy and happy, right? So
it doesn't have to be perfect.
No.
But we're saying you have to change your environment. Why? We don't say it just from the standpoint of like, you have to be responsible when you're parents. The reason is we look at everything from like this standpoint. Because if you begin to organize your life in a way and control it a little bit more than you're doing now, right? From the standpoint of like Jeannie just said, like, I woke up tired today. It's a gym day. Should I go to the gym? No, rest. Or in the middle of my cycle and I'm exhausted. Should I go to the gym? No, take a bath. Like listening to your body. When you do these things, right, from your sleep patterns to, taking me time, asking for help and nutrition, you begin to change the overall state of your physiology. And the example we use is whether it's a war zone, a roller coaster, or a lion, it's almost like, let's say something happened in your life. It was a pregnancy or a stress or a trauma, right? That changes
all of the above.
It changes our physiology. So it's like we got on this roller coaster one day, which is supposed to be fun. The problem is 10 years ago, we're still on it now. We never got off it. Roller coasters are fun, puts us in this kind of like sympathetic state. We're alert, the butterflies, we get off, we regulate. The problem is everyone's on a roller coaster every day because we're dieting, we're not eating enough, we're overeating, we're over-exercising, we're overworking. The pandemic now, it's just, it's getting out of control. So we're really saying to people, you have to change. We have to begin to change the state of our system. So when you do the yoga, you're not in the middle of Vietnam and it actually works for you.
You guys, you know what I love so much that there was like a huge takeaway as you're talking that I don't think a lot of people think about. First of all, that was hysterical. I'm like thinking war zone and yoga. Like, I love the fact that we all think about our body as this dysfunctional thing and we forget that it is functional. Like our body is meant to heal. It's meant to do amazing things. Like we are the most resilient creatures ever. I mean, think about it. We survive through everything. It's insane. So it's true. And I think one of the things that is so important that you guys also said was you have to be willing to change. I can't tell you how many people sign up for a new program or they hire somebody and they don't do the work and they don't understand why nothing's happening. And then they tend to want to blame something else. Oh, it's because of this. Oh, it's because of they or them. Or no, it's because you really have to want it and you really have to put in the effort. Guys, let me ask you a question. In terms of, the most common conditions, I know for me, I've heard from a lot of my clients about hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. And a lot of people, some people may not even know if they have the condition. They just may be feeling the symptoms of either one of those conditions. Can you kind of give us a little quick rundown of what the difference is and what kind of symptoms you might experience with both of those for those that may wonder if they even have the condition?
Yeah. So just to go back on one thing you said, and we've written a lot of posts on this, is there's nothing wrong with you. Like people go to their doctor, like I've been to so many doctors and they failed me. There's nothing wrong with me, but I feel like horrible. That's a good thing. Doctors are trying to find pathology and disease. If they tell you there's nothing wrong with you, that's amazing. It's just that your physiology is mismanaged. And we're trying to get you to live in a way to manage your physiology better.
But I think, and even going off of that, so many programs are designed around nutrition and supplementation.
Yeah.
And so we're doing these things and we're not getting the results that we want to see because we are not aware of the other variables that are playing a role. And even when we are aware of those variables, we don't know where to begin. So even with nutrition for us, if our clients are in such chaos that they can't prep or plan or get their foods grocery shopping, how are we supposed to be successful? So I think we need to take a step back, and it really comes back to slowing things down a little bit, right?
Especially if we're talking to a lot of mothers, you have to slow down, and it's challenging because we have one kid, two, we have many children, and it's challenging, but you have to ask for help. You have to find ways to take me time and pause. We always say this, and then we'll answer your question. But
no, this is realistic. This is realistic.
Think about yourself as your child, right? You wouldn't wait 2 hours in the morning to feed your child after they woke up. You wouldn't put them on an intermittent fasting diet. You wouldn't feed them breakfast and then wait 6 hours to eat, right? When they're tired, you let them rest, right? When they want to play, you let them play. When they're hungry, you make sure they have their meals. They're going on a field trip. Let me pack their food. You have this awareness for your child when they cry. Oh, that means she's hungry. Oh, that means she needs to be nurtured. That awareness and that thought process, you need to take to yourself and think about yourself as that little girl or little boy.
Yeah, seriously, how many times a day do you just feel like you want to cry and you don't know why?
Cry.
Treat yourself like you're a kid. Like, seriously though, how many times a day where you just like legit, like you almost want to feel like you want to have a nervous breakdown because there's so much going on. I mean, with COVID, it's like, especially if you're in a house like mine with an open floor plan, it's like, I got, my husband's like Shush McGee in the corner. He's like, I can't, I'm going to telecom. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to do this. And the kids are screaming and homeschooling. And then, it's like, oh my God, I got to make dinner and I got to do this. But it is a big package. Like when you do sign up for something, you got to sign up for yourself. You got to invest in yourself and it's okay. So many mothers and you guys, parents, right? How much is it's like, they feel guilty having me time or you time. Like they feel guilty, like, oh, I can't leave for an hour and do that, or I can't put myself first. But guys, reality check. If you don't put yourself first and you're not a happy parent, you're a better parent when you're a happy parent, even if you need to like leave for a day and go stay at a hotel,
I think
by yourself, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
And I think part of parenting is, being an example of taking care of yourself so that your children will learn how to do that as well, to slow down, to be okay, things like that. So,
right.
So to answer your question, because we could talk forever on this stuff, but for us, we feel that, and this is a bold statement, and it's kind of like a gray area, so I'm going to word it in a way that it's like not illegal, but we feel like thyroid issues are commonly diagnosed incorrectly, not that we're doctors and can diagnose. And the reason is because it's an evolution of things. Number one, doctors are not doing full thyroid panels. They just test TSH. Now, that's Western medicine. Everything's evidence-based, based on research, okay? Unfortunately, that couldn't be further from the truth when you're looking at the thyroid. You wouldn't bring your car in and say, I need to get my engine checked, and they just look at your gas. Oh, the gas tank's full, engine works fine. Gas tank's low. Oh, the engine's not working, put in more gas. It doesn't work like that. So if you're going to get a thyroid panel, you need to look at TSH. You need to look at antibodies. You need to look at free T3, free T4, reverse T3. A lot of doctors won't test reverse T3 because they only believe in like catastrophic situations like you're being in the ICU is the only reason they can test it, right? So number one, you have to get a full thyroid panel. Number two, a lot of doctors will say if your TSH is high, you have hypothyroidism. If your TSH is low, you have hyperthyroidism. From our point of view, it doesn't make any sense. The reason is, number one, when you do a thyroid panel, you're not looking at, okay, is my thyroid hormone producing thyroid hormone? Is it converting it? And is it being used in the cell? And that's what our approach is about. And this is why we use body temperature and pulse, because it shows us, are they producing it or are they not converting it or using it in the cell, right? So labs don't look at that, and that's why we use body temperature and pulse. Secondly, when you look at things like just high TSH, you're not really, or even just a lab, you're not asking, who is this person? Where are they coming from? What was their history? Have they had any crazy traumas? Like, who is this person? And I think that's an important piece of this. And secondly, there's many things that can lower TSH, right? Like excess cortisol, and that's why you need to look at reverse T3. Because if you have lower TSH and high reverse T3, that means there's stress in the system. You don't need a thyroid med. The worst thing you could do would be put on a thyroid med. So what we see is that most people have functional hypothyroidism, and what's sad is they're put on thyroid medication, and it creates a thyroid issue over time, right? So functional hypothyroidism means the thyroid's producing hormone, T4, which is your inactive thyroid hormone. But somewhere along the lines, whether it's in the liver, the gut, or there's excess estrogen blocking the conversion, not enough glycogen, mineral depletion, you're not converting the thyroid hormone that's being produced, right? Or there's chronic stress in the system affecting the actual production of thyroid hormone production, right? So those are your functional types, which can all be handled with lifestyle and nutrition management. The problem is people have put on thyroid medication. Now they shut down the thyroid and they create a thyroid problem.
So tell
having a foundation.
Right.
Guys, I'm just going to interrupt you for 2 seconds, but can you tell some of the people that are on here may not know what hypothyroidism and what happens if someone does have that? What are some of the side effects someone can experience with that?
With hypothyroidism?
Hypothyroidism. And you can go into hyper after that, but if, you know, I know some people kind of tuning in, they may not know what that is or what kind of symptoms or what that, you know, what they would be feeling if they had that. Can you kind of give us a little quick rundown on that?
For a lot of people, it's just, that means like slower metabolism, because your thyroid hormone gets used in your cells, which are the conductor of all your systems. It's 50 trillion cells in your body. You come into this world as a cell. It's the only hormone that can activate your cell for you to produce energy. So when you don't have enough, you're going to feel sluggish, tired. Your hair is going to fall out a little bit, right? You might gain weight a little bit more easily, etc.
You're not going to be as resilient to exercise. You're going to have poor recovery, sleep. It's going to be very, menstrual cycles heavily affected. Right?
Now, don't base your diagnosis just off these symptoms, because that could just be, I have a 1-year-old. You know?
Totally. Yeah. You know? I have someone teething in my house, which is me.
Yeah. But at the same time, you can have a low TSH, and doctors will say you have hyperthyroidism, but you're presenting with hypothyroid-like symptoms, which is very common. I'll be honest with you, or will be honest with you. Hyperthyroidism, like true hyperthyroidism, is very, very rare.
Yeah, I agree. That was funny. So when I was reading a little bit about that, it's like you don't hear of super fast overproducing one. You hear of one that's like slow, you know. And you said before, now actually just a quick question. So someone that's on here that may not have the condition, I bet people that are on here that have it probably know a lot about it. You probably Googled the hell out of it, right? And you probably know everything you can to know. But if someone like me, that I suffered with hypothyroidism when I was pregnant a little bit, but it changed, of course, after I had the baby. Everything went back to normal. However, like what can cause, can you tell us, is it like a genetic thing? I know you talked about environmental factors, getting older, like what are do people experience this at a certain point of their life more than other times? Like what do you find causes this? I know this is a really open-ended question, but if you can kind of get into different things that can cause it, it'd be great to know, because I know cortisol buildup, a lot of it's due to stress, right? Really high stressful life. And even people, if you're doing a workout that you don't enjoy, like Josh had said, the yoga and the battle analogy, which is funny because I had a client that she kept doing high intensity training because she thought like that was the best thing, but her body was so stressed out by it, it was building up her cortisol really badly, and it was causing her to actually have adverse results. So just kind of curious if you can kind of let us know, like what can bring the onset of thyroid imbalance?
Well, I think you kind of nailed it.
Did I already answer it?
It's a chronic stress.
It's a layering effect.
It's a layering effect. It's a cumulative. So where it comes on for one person in their life versus another person is really going to depend on their story, their resiliency, from conception to now, right? Mm-hmm. Like I spoke to a woman yesterday who had brain surgery when she was 2 years old and now has a severe brain injury. It just came out of brain surgery 2 months ago, has children at home, homeschooling. She's totally stressed out beyond. And she's telling me about all of this and kind of what she's experiencing, but leaving out, oh, wait, yeah, well, I did have brain surgery when I was 2 years old, because we kept talking, I kept asking questions, right? So you begin to see this build up and accumulation of this life where now we've just hit the threshold. We can't sustain it any longer.
Right.
Now those metabolic reserves and that resiliency have really become compromised.
And this is why you're seeing autoimmune diseases through the roof. 20 years ago when we started this, we never worked with anyone with Hashimoto's, never worked with anyone with Graves, because it wasn't around. Now that's all we see. This is why you're seeing histamine issues, right? The food's not the problem, and this could be a whole nother conversation in itself, but it's our body that's the issue, going into mineral deficiencies that allow us to clean up the excess histamine that's being produced. This is why we're seeing MTHFR, right? What chronic stress does to the liver, and it produces what's called metallothionein, which binds copper, which affects that gene itself. So that's why you're seeing all these chronic issues, because we're at the far end of what we can handle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a doctor, his name is Gabor Mate. Is he a doctor?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We
So
made him one if he's not. We made him one if he's not. Just
yeah, he is. He has a theory called the biopsychosocial theory. And he says that everyone's like, oh, you have fibromyalgia or you have Hashimoto's, and let's focus on this disease. But he says that you are everything from conception till now. And you cannot separate the person, their physiology, from the biological and social aspects of their entire life. So everyone's like, well, I'm 35 and I got Hashimoto's last year. No. Or I'm exhausted because I was vegan for 3 years. No. It's everything that led you up to this point. That is who you are. And I think we try to get people to see that and understand that, because it's not just this one thing that got you here.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Danielle, because moms are coming out of pregnancy and they're like, well, I just had a baby and now my whole life has changed. I can't function. And yes, you're a new mom and you've just given birth and you've grown a baby, but there's also been an accumulation up to that point, right? Even if menopause, why does one woman suffer with severe symptoms versus another woman? And it's because, again, it's the stabilities, it's the imbalance, the level of resiliency going up into that state where, again, if you switch that button and there's been an accumulation, you're going to feel that effect a lot more aggressively than somebody who has been more regulated or has more resiliency, right?
But that's a good point, just going off what you said earlier. And this is why a lot of women, I'm not saying they don't, there's some that do, but a lot of women are misdiagnosed with hypothyroidism post-pregnancy.
And hyper, well, there's a fluctuation.
Yeah. Why? Is because in pregnancy, you're naturally supposed to swell. That's a reservoir for the baby. Now, is there extreme swelling? Yes. Your breasts naturally increase in size for a reason. Your blood volume should go up from 40% for a reason, right? And there's a reason why your TSH naturally goes up. You're supporting another human. Things have to move faster. You need more energy. You need more thyroid hormone, right? But when you come out of pregnancy, if you came into it with money in the bank account, you will regulate naturally. If you came in depleted, you're going to be that person that comes out and is hypothyroidism or goes from hypo to hyper. And that's why you're seeing that. But I think if we understand naturally how the body works, we move away from diagnosing and we gain that trust and say, how can I support myself differently? Versus just always saying, oh, this number is high, you have hypothyroidism.
And what's even really important, ladies, those of you that are on here right now, getting pregnant, keeping the child, your thyroid is extremely important too. So even though you may not have a condition and you're on here, if you struggled with miscarriages, a lot of times this can also have to do with the thyroid. Guys, have you ever had clients come to you that were having a tough time conceiving due to their thyroid?
All the time.
Yeah. And what kinds of things did you, what did you recommend from, this is a really broad question. You're probably like, Danielle, seriously? But in terms of nutrition and food, okay, like what types of foods should we really be, is there foods that can hurt our condition? And of course, I know there's foods that can help, but in terms of food, like what types of food do you say, this is what you want good thyroid health, like you need to stock up on, blank. But I know this is a really big question to ask.
Certain foods, what we call our metabolic foods, right? And that's going to be more of your root vegetables, your winter squashes, your fruits, quality proteins, quality fats. And speaking of the carbohydrates, it's the types of sugars that you're receiving, right? You've got a balance of glucose and fructose, which allows us to regulate a little bit more. You've got the density and fiber within your root vegetables that create a sustained burn with, but there's always balance that we're coming back to as well. And everybody is different. And I think if I want to kind of veer away from the types of foods that are the importance, because yes, it matters. But when we're working to recover the state of the thyroid and the state of the physiology and get the brain and the body reconnected to one another, it's more about understanding where your energy systems are. Are you producing inflammation or are you producing energy? right? Because that's the first thing that needs to be adjusted. And everyone, as far as the foods that work for them, is going to be just a little bit different.
Yeah.
But it is pulling in those metabolic carbohydrates and quality proteins and fat at the right time to begin to replenish those energy deficiencies. We have to begin to do for the body what it can't do for itself. Right? So we can have the conversation all day about what food is healthy and what isn't, but if we're not utilizing it in a way that supports our physiology, we're really missing a powerful opportunity to help our body move along in this healing process. Right?
I would say the first thing is for everyone is to, when you wake up in bed in the morning, take your body temperature and pulse. Just get a digital thermometer, roll over, put it in your mouth, take your pulse, on the thumb side, count for 30 seconds. Well, use your clock, but 30 seconds multiplied by 2, right? If your body temperature is below 97.8, your pulse is below, let's say, 70, it means that metabolically there's not enough wood on the fire.
Yes.
Right?
That's really awesome. Guys, I've never, this is a really cool thing you guys just said. Can you just repeat that one more time? I know everyone just probably had their pen, just say that one more time, everybody. If your
body temperature is below 97.8, or your pulse is below 70, that means maybe you're producing thyroid hormone, but it's not being utilized. It's not being converted. It's not being utilized in the cell. There's not enough energy being produced. Easier example, there's not enough wood being put on the fire during the day. Maybe the wrong types, you're throwing sticks on and paper, or you're just throwing a bunch on in the morning and then fasting all day, right? That fire is going to go out. So it's good for people to do just to see where they're at, but also to see their progress as they fuel their system. Now, to touch upon what Jeannie said, the food is important, but also what you're getting through the day. Meaning, are you just waking up and having 2 meals a day? That's not enough fuel to support a human, never mind another human, right? So you have to think about increasing the amount of times you eat during the day, whether it's a meal or snack. If you're having 2 meals, go to 3. Over time, go to 4 or 5. If you're having 4, add another one, right? So slowly increase the amount of wood you're putting on a fire. And the example we use is, if you lived, let's say, in Alaska in a log cabin and you had to fuel the fire in the morning, you wake up, it's minus 20. You're not going to go, oh, I'm going to wait 2 hours to put some wood in the fire. Or let me put some newspaper on the fire, right? That's like a coffee or a shake. You're going to put wood on the fire so it creates a nice fire, keeps the temperature in the house stable, so you can go outside and chop wood, maybe do whatever you need to do, and come in 3 or 4 hours, put more wood on the fire, right? So it keeps this nice efficiency versus putting some paper on, then an hour later some sticks, hour later some wood coming back. It's just inconsistent.
And I want to give an example of what that might look like, Danielle, because again, for women especially, there's this idea of, I'm going to have a smoothie for breakfast, and I'm going to have maybe some cottage cheese for a snack, right? And then I'm going to have a salad for lunch. And that would be the equivalent of throwing like a smoothie, lighter fluid onto a fire, right? Or let's say cottage cheese, maybe a piece of paper. So you're going to get that poof. It's just going to burn. That energy is not going to be sustained. And there's a lot of instability when you're not producing energy hormonally in the system. So you've got to anchor it with those really grounding, substantial whole foods, right? So we're going back to this concept of whole foods in moderation, in balance throughout the day to be able to support the energy needs of our body.
Think of yourself like your child.
Yeah.
We have a 4-year-old. We wouldn't just give him milk and say, you're good for 6 hours. Are you kidding me?
Right.
He would be the Tasmanian devil, right? We make sure that, if we're going to do something, he gets a nice big meal or snack, and you always have food on you when you go somewhere when you have a child. Why?
Yeah.
You're no different. We just get lost in the minutia of life and forget about ourselves, right?
Well, everyone, it's true. Everyone is just, especially women, they're all about everyone thinks that you got to eat like a bird to be fit. It's like, no, you actually need to eat to be fit, so no, it's so true. Now, do you feel that, what's your take on, I know this is something I've been really into lately, is really learning to, really study the ingredients in your food, right? Because a lot of things now these days, unfortunately, there's a lot of GMOs in foods. There's a lot. Now, do you guys, I know you're speaking whole foods. Are you 100% organic? How do you feel about organic versus not organic? Or do you have foods that are like your go-tos, and how do you feel about that versus, especially with kids, guys, high fructose corn syrup is in every single kid's snack. It's so bad for you. So how do you guys feel about when you are selecting your whole foods about organic versus, non-organic? Do you have a take on that?
I think that we're always pushing towards organic. The higher quality, the better for your body, right? So that's definitely a conversation. But I think there's also working within your means.
You have to find a balance.
Really important. So what we always recommend is if you're going to put your money anywhere, put it into your proteins, right? You want to stay away from conventional proteins, even conventional dairies, and get the better quality, even if it's no hormone, no antibiotics, and then you can get up to organic, and then you can get up to grass-fed organic. There's different layers, but just kind of working within your means to find the best quality for yourself, I think is the best way to go.
There's an old saying, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. So, and that it rings true. And a lot of people are like, oh, GMO, that's so fake, it doesn't make sense, But we can really simplify it with these things. When you eat genetically modified foods, it chelates so much copper from your body. And when we talk about copper, we're talking about thyroid hormone production. We're talking about thyroid hormone conversion. We're talking about cellular energy production. We're talking about iron regulation, all these things. So GMO foods from that sense isn't good. High fructose corn syrup chelates copper among a million other things. Yeah. So when you're looking at the food, you're saying, am I going to get the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that I should? Or am I just eating a piece of steak that looks like steak, but is full of antibiotics?
Exactly.
Grain?
That's where I was going with this. Yeah, exactly. Because it's like you could be thinking you're eating all these whole foods, but if you're not really careful about what you're picking up and what it says and where it's from, you're still not getting 100% what they're telling you to do.
Purchasing local
is always a better thing to do.
When we started in this industry 20 years ago, all we did was talk to people about, read labels. If you can't pronounce it, don't eat it, right? Same thing with things putting on your skin, right? Because your skin absorbs it. How do we get you to work towards eating more organic foods? That's all we used to do with people back in the day, right? Obviously, it's much more readily available, and now it's gone to the point where organic is not even that healthy anymore. You have to go to the source. Because now everyone's like, well, I eat organic gluten-free cookies. Yeah, look at the ingredients.
Yeah, seriously, of course. That cracks me up just because it's funny.
Like so LA.
Yeah, just like, I know. Everyone thinks because it says gluten-free, it's healthy. Gluten-free doesn't mean healthy. It's just talking about having no wheat. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthy.
And they bring in other
and it's had to be filled with a lot of other extras.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, it's really interesting because I know this is totally a whole nother conversation, but you guys got to really be wary of the first 4 ingredients, especially because when you do read a food label, those 4 ingredients are what contains the most, starting with the first ingredient to what that item contains the least will be the last ingredient. And it's funny what's the misconception, right, on enriched? I remember back when I was younger, I thought the word enriched, when I saw that, was like, oh, it must have so much nutritional value. Did you ever see enriched wheat flour or something like that? It has
a buttload of iron in it.
Yeah. It means basically it got stripped to shit.
It's not good.
The language, yeah. And they tried to throw some stuff back in and make it nutritional again. So, all synthetic. So you guys, it's really important that you're really wary. Now, let's be honest, organic is expensive. It's more expensive. So that what you guys recommend with the local farms, like yesterday I was in the store and believe it or not, we had a local section. I see some Pelham folks on here. See Ashley on here. So over at Hannaford's over here in Pelham, they had a local eggs, and then they had the organic. The organic eggs were expensive, not gonna lie. So what I just did was I went with the local brand, because at least you're doing a little one step forward. And not everything can be organic. It is costly, but I agree. You guys made such a good point. If you can stick to the things that truly are important, like the dairies and the meats.
The dairies, the meats. You can work. Here's the thing. You can go to Walmart. You can go to just regular grocery stores that have organic vegetables that are way less than going to Whole Foods. Whole Foods is a complete ripoff.
They're take my whole wallet. Whole Foods, yeah.
Go to farmers markets and get vegetables. You can find different co-ops where people have their own cows and sheep and goats, and they meet you in a parking lot and other people to give you your monthly supply of dairy. Look for Amish people or forget the other group.
There are those Amish people
They
around
usually
here.
sell butter and dairy and eggs for way cheap.
Yeah.
You know, they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
To keep it even a little more simplified than that, Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's.
Ah.
I mean, they have some bad options, but they have some good options.
Yeah, if you kind of shop the perimeters just like usual in the produce, you're good. The inner aisles, you kind of want to.
Anything Trader Joe's is non-GMO.
Everything
That their label
know.
doesn't say it. They haven't paid for the qualification, but if it's a Trader Joe brand, it's non-GMO.
Didn't know that. Yeah, and the other thing too is if you guys, one thing that I usually do too is I think about the thicker the skin on like the fruit, for example. In my head, like if it's a banana, it's got that really thick peel on and the fruit's underneath it. Sometimes it's like, geez, you have to go organic. If you have to choose between like raspberries and a banana, I would go with the raspberries because they don't have much protection on it from pesticides, whereas the banana's got a pretty thick piece of skin on it. Probably a little safer if you don't go organic with the banana. Yeah, so there is different things you guys can think about when it comes to that.
I mean, our goal in working with people isn't to turn them into food Nazis. It's to help them create a way of living that works for them. And some people say, I can't afford it. I can do natural though, or I can't even afford it at all, but I still want to change how I eat. That's great. Our goal is not to push everyone to 100th degree. It's helping them create a better lifestyle for themselves and their family.
And anything that's going to create more stress is kind of working against the goal, right?
Absolutely. Well, guys, I know we've got about 5 more minutes together, and I know you have kids and you have to get back to your work too. But I know we had some questions on here. I know there's a bunch of viewers on here, guys. Looking at the comments below, I would love for you to ask any questions that you have because we've got about 5 minutes left of this awesomeness of all this. I know that Ashley had said here, can we get a list of the tests that they are discussing? Oh yeah, so they had talked about the thyroid panel. So guys, if they just, what would someone have to ask for if they want to get this?
You would go, this is the issue. A lot of doctors will say, no, we cannot test for that. It depends really on your insurance, which is kind of sad, but usually you want TSH, free T3, free T4, reverse T3, and antibodies, right? That's a simplified test. But a lot of doctors will say, I will not test for that. I'll only test for TSH. Your other option, which is beautiful nowadays, you have websites like Private, I think it's called Private MD, Ulta Labs, which is one we use a lot. And they work with like Quest and other companies where you can go on, pick any lab you want, like a full thyroid panel, anything, pay for it. You set up an appointment. It'll show you the closest lab to where you live. You set up an appointment date. You go in, they take your blood, and then they post your results to your account in the back end of that site. Of course, it's out of pocket, but none of it, I mean, unless you do like full crazy panels, they can be expensive. But I think really a full thyroid panel, if I was like to say it off the top of my head, is it under $50 easily?
I would say I think we're about 70.
Wow, that's totally affordable.
But it's, it's
how do you spell Ulta? Is it ALTA?
ULTA.
Ulta, got it. Ulta. Ulta.com?
Ulta Lab.
Lab.com.
They have tons of coupons all the time. They have 10% off, 50% off, 20% off. You subscribe to their newsletter. I mean, I get 10. Yeah. I mean, it's like overwhelming, but you get the percents off, so that would be your basic thyroid panel to look at. There are other things you'd want to look at, but without going into in another, hour topic, that's a great one to look into. Just get the basics of what's going on with your thyroid.
And then call you with the results. And you got to set an appointment with them to figure out how to get yourself cured.
Body temperature and pulse.
Taking the body temperature and pulse in the morning. That's going to let you know. I'll be honest, the whole idea of hypothyroidism or low thyroid or low metabolism, it is really more of an epidemic. Most people are at some level of stress where it's shutting down their energy systems. We're overworked. We're under-resourced, right? So I think everybody's kind of there. So it's not about, I'm taking your temperature, I'm low, I must have hypothyroidism. No. It's, my body's showing me that I can't, something's interfering with my ability to produce my energy. So when I wake up, I'm going to nourish my body. I'm going to put some energy in the tank right away. right? And then I want that energy to kind of stay with me for a little while, but you start to figure out, you know, that frequency in which you eat, so you continue to work with that, and you'll start to see those things begin to regulate. But coming back to testing, yes, you can.
But you can take your body temperature pulse when you wake up in bed laying down, after meal 1 seated, after meal 3 seated. And look at your patterns. Is it going up and down? That's blood sugar. Is it starting low and going up? That means you're living in a way and eating in a way to support yourself. It's the simplicity of it, right? Well, so it's information for you, because a lot of doctors say, oh, you have hypothyroidism. I wake up with a 98 temperature. It's impossible to have hypothyroidism and wake up with a 98 temperature. It's impossible. Right? Because your cells produce heat. And if you don't have thyroid hormone to produce that heat, you would have hypothyroidism in a sense. But if you're producing the heat, it's a functional hypothyroid issue. You just need to change how you're living and eating. And that's why we use it, not to say your doctor's wrong, but to educate people so they can make changes and make the best decision for themselves.
And you can also, because we're speaking to women, just to say this real quickly, again, we know for fertility you track body temperature and pulse. So if women are tracking, be mindful that if you're taking temperatures in your luteal, you're going to see things within norm. So make sure or higher. So you want to make sure you're taking some readings in your follicular as well, where your hormones are a little more baseline, but also tracking that throughout the month, because you'll start to see, are you ovulating? Is there a luteal fail? What's going on in your hormonal cycle? And then the more you regulate, the more stability you create, the less you're going to see those imbalances.
Or where you need to support yourself a little bit more during your cycle. Because for a lot of women, how you eat in the first half of your cycle, when estrogen is typically, let's say, higher, it's normally higher. You know, that's the phase where, like, it's building. Estrogen builds muscle. It actually makes people more resilient. They can handle more, right? Whereas the last half of the phase, when estrogen's a little lower, progesterone's high, you know, you can eat differently. You can work out differently in those phases than you should to support yourself.
We need, like, you to live with us during the whole process, prprepare our meals.
For the right price, we can.
And there was the plug.
Yeah.
We cued it in.
That worked perfect.
Yeah, that was amazing. So wait, one more question, and I don't want to seem like I wasn't listening to what you guys said, but I know someone might ask this question. But we talked about how like most of the time you don't need medication. Is there a situation where someone really does need a medication?
Yes. Yeah. And there are people that would do, and that was the last thing I was going to say, is we're not saying no one needs it. There are people that do. There's people that do have true thyroid issues, right? They have high TSH. They have low thyroid value or values. Their body temperature pulse is 95, and they have a 40 pulse or 120 pulse waking up, right? They are hypothyroid. But here's the thing. There's a few theories on this. Some people believe because of what copper does to stimulating thyroid release hormone, which stimulates TSH, that people that do have a true thyroid issue are truly depleted in copper because of GMO foods, because of high fructose corn syrup, synthetic vitamin C, synthetic vitamin A, synthetic taking too much vitamin D. Well, all these things affect copper metabolism, right? And we believe in a lot of this stuff. This is a huge topic, and that's for another time.
And I feel like now I want to jump onto that topic, but I know, I feel like that's a whole other, I really got to get into, you said vitamin D, I was like,
Yeah, so let's ignore that, though, and say you do. But here's the thing. If you have hypothyroidism, right, low metabolic state, the example we use is this. It's like you have this, like, old 1980 Nissan. It's like 200 miles on the car. It's not working right. And you put a nitrous button in the car, you know, with a gigantic muffler. And you hit that nitrous button, what's going to happen to the car? It's going to blow up. It can't handle it. So when you put thyroid medication, which is energy, extreme energy, into a system that can't handle it, for a lot of people, it begins to work against them, or it doesn't work at all. Why? They don't have the foundation. Because if you go to the doctor and say, I have hypothyroidism, which means something happened in the last 40 years or everything that's created who I am, and you just take thyroid medication, what have you changed? Nothing. That's why it doesn't work. So you have to create that foundation, and that's what our approach is all about. How do we create the foundation to support the medication so it's not overstimulating? It can be converted and used efficiently.
I'm really still stuck on the vitamin D. I feel like, especially you guys, if you live in like a climate like it's cold and we have no sun. I haven't seen the sun in New Hampshire like in a long time. It's getting depressing. But so yeah, I'm not even going to go there with the questions because then we'll be here for another hour or so. But it is really interesting. You know, what they say is at the end of the day, if you are eating a wholesome diet and you are really making the effort to have balance and not too much of anything, but you should technically be in time nutrition, right? Eating in a timely manner, the right things. You should be having great thyroid health and balance. So guys, if I know there's a lot of people on here that are like probably dying to be able to get a hold of you. If someone on here would love to talk to you, got a consultation, or maybe they already have a thyroid issue and they're really feeling defeated with doctors, medications, they just would love your advice. How can they get in touch with you guys?
The easiest way is our website, eastwesthealing.com. You can set up a free consult, you can also, on the bottom of our homepage, you can find our social media pages. Our Facebook is East West Healing, and our Instagram is Real Food Gangstas. And we put out tons of content. So people probably have questions about what we said today. We have probably 10 posts to answer every question. Vitamin D, we have 4 or 5 posts.
I'm going on there right now, scrolling that. So you guys have some books too, don't you? If someone wants to buy, don't you have books on everything we talk about too, right? A few books?
We have 3. They're basic books, but they're good. We have one on the saturated fat. It's a little bit older, but it's basically on saturated fat. They're $9 ebooks. They're very basic. And then this is on our website. We have one, it's called The Female Blueprint. It's another basic read as well. It's $9. And then probably our biggest seller is our RTN cookbook. The first, 20 pages, 15 pages is the basics of our approach. And then there's like 80 recipes from, breakfast to smoothies to treats to,
Yeah, see guys, they're not against smoothies, but they're not saying to have that as your giant meal. Like that's more of like an addition. It's an addition. It's a bonus. Yeah. That's awesome. I need to grab, I think that it's fantastic that it's the basics, because I think most of us don't even know the basics, and it's a great way to start. I would love to cook, so I'm definitely going to grab. I'm going to grab everything.
My cookbook, or your children's book, or your workout book.
I know. It's funny and I always tell people this too, and I say this right in the introduction of my cookbook, is I don't claim to be all organic, and I don't claim to be Miss Clean, like MissCleanEating.com. It's just about balance at the end of the day. We can't, like Josh and Jeannie said, you can't be like food Nazis. You can't drive yourself crazy, because if you pick up every single food label, you guys are going to go nuts. You're gonna create anxiety and cortisol buildup, and then your thyroid's gonna be all crazy. What you really just need to be right, guys. It's just about trying your best, being more cognizant about it, and getting in the know. Start to understand your body, that, like they said, it is a functional thing. It's not, I know we all feel a little dysfunctional right now with COVID. Like we all feel like absolute lunatics, but at the end of the day, your body is a beautiful working machine. It wants to work with you. So use your what they said today is so key. And guys, if you want to get in touch with them, you have to follow them on Instagram, by the way. They are, we'll put this in the comments below, but absolutely phenomenal information every day. So I was watching the whole histamine thing on the bone broth thing, and I was like, oh, it's so cool. So yeah, I'm like constantly amazed by all their posts. They have like a gazillion followers, and now you'll see why. So you guys, I can't thank you enough. I recorded this, so it's going to stay on here for you guys. Thank you so much for being on. We managed to do this under an hour, even though it's 8 minutes till an hour, but we managed to do this, and I'm really proud of us. So thank you guys. I can't thank you enough. And there'll be questions below here. You guys can always, I'll let them pop and answer some of those questions. If you want, you can ask them below, and they can kind of answer on their own time. But definitely get in touch with them if you have any more questions, and grab their books. I'm grabbing them. So
if you need ribs, get hold of Barbecue Broker.
Oh yeah, and if you need ribs, Got it.
He's
Actually,
a gigantic
he
smoker.
does, and he does make his own barbecue sauce. So I don't believe there shouldn't be any crazy stuff in there. Anyway, guys, you're awesome.
Thanks, Danielle.
And I'll get to catch up with the two of you on like a whole different. We're not live on Facebook. Okay, bye guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thank
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.